There's an old saying in woodworking that states that you can never have enough clamps. And I can definitely attest to this because if I had a nickel for every time I was short a clamp during a glue up, I'd have a pretty big jar of nickels. So I think that most woodworkers would agree that having a decent supply of clamps is pretty important. And recently I heard about Bessey's IBeam clamp, and I thought it would be cool to do a video review on them. So I contacted Bessey and they sent me several of their IBeam clamps to try out and review. The thing that impressed me immediately after I pulled these clamps from the box was how heavy they are. The weight is pretty substantial, and that's most likely because there's not a single piece of plastic anywhere on the clamps, like you'll find on a lot of parallel clamps. The clamps come in lengths from 24 to 96 inches long. The body of the clamp is made from a powder-coated ductile casting, and the rail is nickel-plated so that it's able to resist corrosion. There are 5 hardened steel clutch plates which are used to grip the rails securely under load. In order to move this assembly forward, you just squeeze the clutch plates together and then you can slide the assembly forward. But I'm having a little bit of trouble moving this section of the clamp around on the rail. It's a little tight. But I did find that if I flip the clamp over and squeeze the clutch plates from underneath, it's a lot easier to move around. I contacted Bessey about this problem and they told me that they're aware of the problem and that it is being addressed by looking at a variety of factors including the casting, the plate length, and the range of motion, and also the thickness of the spring inside. In order to advance the clamp and tighten your work down, you just turn the handle in the back of the clamp and it advances the front portion of the clamp. And this spins really nicely. It's very smooth as it travels forward or backwards. And the bottom of the handle does clear your bench. There's no need to prop the clamp up when turning the handle. There's plenty of room there. There's not enough room to get your finger underneath the knob and the top of your table. But if you just grab the handle from the sides, there's no problem advancing this without propping it up. Unlike my parallel clamps, which are only capable of putting out 1,000 pounds of clamping pressure, these IBeam clamps from Bessey are able to put out 7,000 pounds of clamping pressure. So with these, I should be able to squeeze together most glue-ups that I throw at this guy. One of the things that I kind of wish this clamp did have was a clamping pad on the front of the clamping surface here to keep you from marring the surface of your work. But that's not a huge problem because you can always make your own out of wood and just adhere it with some double stick tape. When I announced on Instagram that I was going to be doing a review of Bessey's IBeam clamp, a couple of people were curious how prone they are to tipping over. So in order to get at this question of stability, I thought it would be cool to conduct a couple of very non-scientific tests. The first one that I'm going to perform, I'm calling the earthquake test, where I'm going to shake my bench with increasing intensity until one or both of 2 clamps fall over. The second test I'm calling the slide test. That is, can I get the clamps to roll over by sliding a piece of wood across them and gradually increase the weight with successive iterations? Eight and a half inch wide by 2 foot long piece of cherry. £10 or 4.5 kilograms, and I clamped down a straight edge to my bench and I butted it up against the side of the clamp to keep the clamp from sliding as I'm sliding the board. Now the straight edge is so thin that it shouldn't provide any stability, it's just going to keep the clamp from moving. £15 or 6.8 kilograms. £20 or 9 kilograms. Okay, so at least I warned you that those tests would be unscientific, and they certainly were. But I hope that it gives you a better idea of how stable the clamps are under different conditions. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret the results, but it looks like they will tip over if a significant amount of the total weight of a board is dragged across them. The question really becomes, are they stable enough? I'll let you guys make your own conclusions based on what you saw with my unscientific experiments. But my impression is that the IBeam clamps are stable enough, and I don't see stability being a big concern. If you buy these clamps and you're using them for a while and you begin to think that maybe stability really is an issue for you, there is a workaround. You can make these little plywood feet. I made both of these in maybe 10 minutes. You just take them with the slot facing up and you slip the clamp into the slot, and now the clamp has significantly more stability. I want to see how well these clamps would perform in an actual glue-up. So I took that cherry board from earlier and I ripped it down the middle and I edge jointed the edges, and now I'll glue it back together. Now, something that I noticed that I probably would not have predicted unless I went through the process of doing this glue up is that the center clamp, because it's upside down, as I was tightening it, the handle wanted to contact the top of the bench. But because I'm able to tilt the workpiece backwards, I was able to get more clearance underneath the handle and continue to tighten. Now, the outer two clamps, as I mentioned earlier, they're able to spin all the way around freely and the handle won't contact the bench. Now, if this center upside down clamp did become a problem and you're not able to tilt backwards to get more clearance, you could always push the workpiece towards the edge of the bench, and now you have all the clearance that you could possibly need. Just something I wanted to point out, and I don't think it's a huge problem. So in this review, I tried to highlight what I liked about the Bessey IBeam clamps. And as I went along, I did my best to look for and highlight what I didn't like about them as well. In general, I think they perform great for what they are intended for, which is to clamp woodworking projects together. The clamps are incredibly beefy. They have an excellent 7,000 pound clamping force, and I think they will excel in areas where a high amount of clamping force is desired. The areas of the clamp that I felt needed some improving all had workarounds and were not game enders. As I mentioned, one area that I felt needed some improving was the clutch mechanism that I had trouble moving. And as I mentioned already, Bessey is aware of this problem and they're looking into it. But keep in mind that this problem also had a workaround by squeezing the clutch plates together from underneath the clamp. I'd like to also mention again the stability or rollover potential of the clamp. As I mentioned, a couple people that I interacted with on Instagram pointed out to me that this might be a potential problem for the clamp. So I tried my best to design some experiments that would address this concern, and I'll leave it up to you all to decide for yourselves based on what I presented if you think this is an issue or not. But again, this potential concern also has a workaround by making a removable support from plywood. But with or without the added plywood support, I didn't see stability as being a problem. So taking into account everything that I discussed in this review, I would definitely recommend the Bessey IBeam clamps to any woodworker looking for a quality clamp. Thanks for watching.